He is from Italy. Mr. Fabio Targhetta. He will introduce us about the section of Padua of the Italian Pedagogical Association in the late 20th century.
Dear colleagues, good evening. And first of all, I want to thank Franco for the invitation, of course, and the organization of this great symposium, and he's a kind person. So, I'm gonna present the Italian Pedagogical Association, which was founded in 1950, and in particular the section of Padua. Why? Because the Museum of Education of Padua recently acquired all the archive of the section of Padua of SPI, Italian Pedagogical Association. And we're gonna start to study this material. So, the peculiar features of the SPI, this association, are the pluralism and the openness to figures who are interested in educational matters, as can be seen in the article number 9 of the original statute, which states that the President's Council will be composed by 8 university professors, 3 lecturers, 4 professors of secondary school, and 4 elementary school teachers. The ecumenical instance among teachers of different levels, which is the basis of the SPA since its foundation, it can appear to colleagues not Italian and to those who do not remember well that season, not only a practice suggested by common sense, but also a strategy to channel the energies in the direction of a common interest. But it is not so. Not in Italy, and not in those years, and even today in many ways. The Second World, post-war, was a period characterized in Italy by deep divisions, divided the country by rigid ideological barriers imposed by the Cold War and by the splitting within the cultural world. Given a so divided scene, the commitment of the SPI statute to overthrow the division of status between elementary teachers, middle and high school teachers, and university professors, and to overthrow the division of political, religious, and doctrinal thought, acquires a very significant relief. Well, the SPA brings together school teachers, as said earlier, of all levels, to improve and renovate the school and any other institution dealing with education, as well as to enhance study and researches in the field of pedagogy and education. To this end, its work is mainly directed, then as now, to the creation and the planning of activities such as training, updating, and qualification of teachers and all the people involved in education. But when and how was the SPI founded? We already discussed about the ideological and political context. However, it is necessary to specify, especially to the benefit of the foreign colleagues, that those years were characterized by a considerable fervor in the educative field. Consider, only to make an example, the National Commission of Inquiry formed in 1947 by the Ministry of Education Guido Gonella. To the work of the above-mentioned committees brought its contributions some of the most famous Italian specialists of education, some of whom were destined to become, between 1949 and 1950, the promoters of the Italian Pedagogical Association. Indeed, the first provisional presidential council saw the presence of Giovanni Calò, Ernesto Codignola, and Raffaele Resta. They were very famous specialists and researchers in pedagogy. Founded since 1952 by Luigi Stefanini and Giuseppe Flores Barcais, the section of Padua of the SPI has been directed for decades by Barcais, a very significant figure in the Italian pedagogical scene, an exponent of the Catholic personalism. The season opened in the mid-70s was very full of meetings and commitments for the section of Padua. Step by step, indeed, it became an appreciated institution for the training of teachers. It was the first activity. In 1975, for example, the theme debated at the lessons was the teaching of history and the experimentation in the first 2 years of the secondary schools. The following year, the refresher course was addressed only to preschool teachers. At the beginning of the 80s, this annual activity assumed a systematic character, as evidenced by the progressive numbering which was adopted. This organization also meant a greater enlargement of the number of speakers, also called from other Italian universities, on the basis of their specific expertise in the subject matter. So, for example, in 1983, when the subject of a series of meetings were the current pedagogical and didactic problem of compulsory education, were invited 2 professors who were working on the revision of the program teaching for the elementary school. Well, to recall topics and speakers of the cycles of meetings and the refreshing course organized by the section SPI of Padua go beyond the limits of this paper, which is supposed to be an introduction to the topic. I think that these few hints are sufficient to frame the activity of a section which between the 80s and the 90s lived a very intense period. The collaboration started with the education agency and above all with the IRSAE Veneto. The IRSAE was the Regional Research Institute of Educational Testing and Update, an organization sponsored by the Ministry of Education, allowed to enrich the educational offer of Padua section of SPI, which could rely on regional contribution to cover the cost of organizing lessons and symposia. This was the case, for example, of the International Conference held in Padua in January 1996, on the occasion of the anniversary of the birth of Pestalozzi, when there were invited scholars from the major universities in Europe and the United States. To conclude this brief presentation of the activities carried out by the section of Padua of SPI, we must give at least a mention to a big research, a great research on the University Training on Preschool Teachers, a study over the schools of Veneto region, published as a supplement to the issue number 6, November-December 1992, of the journal Prospettive EP, Perspective EP. Starting from this brief paper, it is easy to see the potential for the research of this rich material, not yet used in studies, stored, as I said before, in the Museum of Education of the University of Padua. It is possible to consult teachers' meeting minutes, programs from refresher courses, list of members, notes, lessons plans, collection of photographs, administrative documents, correspondence with the other section, and so on. I have some examples of this material, some Lee left and conference program. As you can see, this was the contribution of Isaiah Veneto. And this was the study published, as I said before. So, this is an archival collection yet to be inventoried. Nevertheless, I think it is important in order to retrace a very interesting and qualified experience of teacher association working in Veneto region in the north of Italy in the second half of the 20th century. Thank you.